Alrighty, so this video recap breakdown prediction thing is over Succession season 4, episode 6. First, let me say I got some big shoes to fill. Big shoes. I got big shoes to fill. Big shoes. Big shoes. Anyway, so it's good to see Logan again at the beginning. I wasn't sure if we were going to get any more scenes with Logan. His facial expressions are super spot on for him. You can tell he's about to go off, and his line about his kids being idiots is super in character for him, as is Kendall's reaction, the whole Valentine's Day thing. See, I noticed that Madsen's barefoot when he transfers planes and goes to see Shiv. That's a pretty nice touch. It's pretty in character for him. I thought it would have been nice if Living Plus had been introduced earlier in this season, given how important it is to this episode. You would think it could have come up at least last week. And Madsen is kind of correct that a really fancy nursing home is just basically a land cruise. I mean, they both serve as old people and try to entertain old people. So Madsen seems to imply that Shiv might be given a CEO type role if the deal goes through. He seems to be kind of trying to butter her up and perhaps offer her a promotion. Madsen reminds me of some of the douchebag rich guys I went to college with. I went to a small Christian college. They're all schmooze and smoothness and this kind of manufactured distance where they actually care a lot, but they act like they don't. Kendall sits in Shiv's seat. It's another example of how Shiv is being forgotten and left behind in this episode, these last few episodes. So Kendall and Roman are obviously trying to lie about Madsen and potential problems with the deal. It's pretty obviously a ploy, and Shiv does seem to see right through them. The siblings all hugging and making up is fine and whatever, but Shiv is obviously trying to make moves, and I think it's just a matter of time until she betrays Kendall and Roman. One thing I noticed is that whenever Greg and Tom enter Shiv's boardroom, Greg seems to be about to show Tom pictures of some women that they're going to meet up with that night. It's unclear if Shiv picked up on that little detail or not. Shiv scheduling her grief is a good example of how fucked up the kids are emotionally. Like they really aren't in touch with their feelings and they're kind of just lashing out and being rude and stuff. So the phrases infinite brain box and space cowboys in town, they're such Kendall things to say. So much of what Kendall says makes no sense in a literal way. If you're thinking about it literally, it doesn't make any sense. It's pretty much all empty corporate speak. Kendall's interest in prolonging life is super within character for him. You know, you think in real life if there was a Kendall type person that they'd be into like immortality and all that stuff. And what's it called? Like cryogenesis and stuff. So yeah, I mean, before this episode, it had been a season or two, maybe even 3, since we had seen Roman really maneuvering in the Hollywood sphere. I think that might be a thing in the first season where he helps make a movie that ends up being really bad. Roman seems to really not like that the movie executive links ATN's conservative nature with the Hollywood liberal mindset, or neoliberal. That's exactly where that conversation seems to start going wrong, is when she starts to complain about ATN's the public perception of ATN. And it is weird that she seems like she needs to complain about the business when Roman is just there to tell her that he wants to throw money at her department. And the fact that the executive laughs when Roman threatens to fire her seems to really seal her fate. Roman says, "I've said it out loud now, and now I have to commit." So that kind of means the firing was totally out of nowhere and unplanned, which is never something you want to do. You never want to fire an executive without having a plan in place. You can tell from the beginning of Kendall being on stage that the lackeys are super uncomfortable with how he's being and how ambitious he's being. It's super creepy to tell people that they can't say no as well. Tom and Shiv's dialogue is so flirtatious and playful. I'm starting to like them as a couple again after kind of hating them being together for so long. Especially their wedding night and then that conversation where Shiv says she never loved him. It's really easy to hate the two of them. They're getting a little bit more likable. Shiv has that reaction whenever Tom apologizes for fucking her up. She's such a good. She seems so astounded and playful. It's really good physical acting. Tom says that I'd had my times. Seems to be kind of negated by how virginal Tom was during his bachelor party. Like, it doesn't seem like he was really all that wild or out there or really living his life before he was married. Like, he tries to pretend like he was. So I think I've seen people playing the game Bitey before. It had been over 10 years for me since I'd seen it. I think it was since college that I hadn't seen it since college, and even then I only saw it once or twice. It's a bit of a deep cut. I think what Kendall does to fuck with the numbers, I think that's technically fraud, like misleading investors and stuff. We'll see if that comes back. Greg's saying that it's hard to make houses seem like technology because we've had them for a while is pretty funny, pretty within character. Kind of a naive but true way of speaking about it. I did think that you would think that Roman and Greg would have had more interactions up until this point, given that they are both kind of the comedic heart of the show. They're kind of the two funniest characters. And you would think that they would have them playing off of each other more. But their interactions this episode are pretty funny, and they seem to kind of be wisecracking and doing one-liners on each other. I did kind of question what happened to Jerry and Roman. I mean, I know what happened, that Roman sent a dick pic meant for Jerry to his dad, and then Roman has now tried to fire Jerry twice. I used to almost hope that they would somehow end up together, Jerry and Roman, like in some weird Oedipal romance thing. Maybe they'd live happily ever after. That doesn't seem like it's in the cards. You would think that Roman would be nicer to Jerry, given how much blackmail Jerry should have on Roman. That whole conversation between Roman and Jerry is really frustrating. Roman seems like he's really breaking down and fucking up and just kind of acting on a whim and not thinking stuff out. Kendall seems to encourage Roman's idiocy. That's also pretty maddening. He says, two young Turks who might just have what it takes to turn things around. Yeah, no one's going to say that about him and Roman except for maybe ATN, and they'd be forced to. Kendall's kind of living in La La Land. I liked that Tom was trying to level with Shiv. I found that really touching. They both seem a lot more self-aware than they have in the past, and Tom calling out Shiv for keeping her walls up throughout the relationship, it explains a lot about the two of them, that, Tom was kind of trying to break down her walls, and she wasn't letting him. Also, I did like that Tom admits that he really enjoys his rich lifestyle, and that was a major part of him getting with Shiv is the influence and the money and stuff, which seems to kind of mirror Connor and Willa's relationship just in a less direct way. Yeah, a lot of what Tom and Shiv say to one another it's super obvious in retrospect if you think about their relationship. That they weren't necessarily guided just by love, but by greed and stuff. But it is nice that that those two are trying to are finally interacting so much, and they're finally being honest with one another. Without trying to also insult the other one while they're being honest. I thought it was unclear if the sound and video editor can't have Logan saying what Greg wants him to say because it would be fraud or because of the technical issues. It could probably be both. There is a line or two that seems to imply it's the technical issues, but I don't know. They seem to get that done pretty quick. Then we get the acronym CAGR, which is Compound Annual Growth Rate. So that means that the fudging of the numbers would raise the company's supposed future growth as it relates to the stock price. That's lying to and defrauding investors. Although I'm sure that this is done at least some in the real world, where they fudge with the numbers and project doing really well whenever they know or suspect they may not be doing that well. I do think it was interesting that Mattson is so opposed to Living Plus as it relates to real estate, because you would think that I'm barely even an amateur investor, but at least at my level of income, people tend to think of real estate as being a sure investment that everyone wants to do, and Mattson seems opposed to that. So Kendall's reaction to the stage is pretty maddening as well. I mean, he seems to kind of not like the clouds, which I thought the clouds looked pretty good, all things considered. Kendall says that he saw it in Berlin, like a better cloud thing. It's probably a reference to a theater performance or possibly a club that had like smoke machines. Roman does seem pretty skeptical of Kendall fucking with the numbers, and then Kendall keeps saying to the moon, which is kind of stealing Reddit investor speak, the whole meme stock and stuff. Reddit memes seem to have kind of gone mainstream with this show. Shiv says that he's got that gleam in his eye in relation to Kendall, and I mean, people online speculate about Kendall being manic depressive or bipolar. He does seem manic at times, especially this episode. He's either on top of the world or he's down in the dumps. It doesn't seem to be much of a middle road. I almost forgot that Shiv was trying to stop Kendall from doing his speech was because of Mattson. Because it makes so much sense logically that someone would need to calm down or shut down Kendall. He's on such a high and he seems so illogical. I did find the co-pilot jacket to be pretty cringe. Shiv seems to have gotten to Roman about the presentation, but Roman's objections to the presentation seem to come way too late in the game to really act on them. They don't have time to find a substitute speaker or anything. I did like that Carl was standing up to Kendall. That was a major power move. It was a great speech. It doesn't seem to affect Kendall all that much, though. And Kendall seems to do like a really nice portrayal of the highs and lows of public speaking, and how whenever you're doing public speaking, your confidence can kind of ebb and flow and increase and decrease. And the main thing with public speaking is to recover from any mistakes as quickly as possible. It seemed like a super accurate portrayal of a somewhat insecure, somewhat hubristic man doing a public speaking. And I mean, of course, the family is all negative about Kendall's speech. All they ever do is try to bring each other down. That's been shown in the show over and over and over again. That it doesn't matter if it's actually good or bad. They're just going to say it's bad because they hate each other so much. It is pretty cringe that Kendall has that conversation with his dead dad on the video. Him trying to be all heartwarming is really within character for him, where it's this weird mix of like shamanistic, like sentimentality, and then like dumbass word salad corporate speak. It's interesting. I did find it interesting that they are now manipulating Logan into saying things when it's usually Logan manipulating other people into saying things. An example of that would be Roman firing Jerry. Roman didn't want to do that in the beginning of the season, but Logan manipulates him into doing that. So it is interesting that Logan is now the one being manipulated, even if he's dead. So a lot of the promises about living plus that Kendall makes are super impossible to fulfill, like, living 50 years longer and all this stuff. I did see online that apparently Disney is doing neighborhoods like Living Plus, where it's like a neighborhood that's like Disney themed and stuff. And Shiv saying you don't want to make prison camps for grannies, to Mattson, seems to foreshadow Mattson referencing the Holocaust in reference to Living Plus. So that phrase, it starts with like Doderick mocked Bright or something, or mocked Frey. Doderick is apparently a mascot from Waystar Roku that was introduced in season 1. I had forgot about that until I looked it up. I think it's the mascot that Greg pukes in the head of, maybe. I did think that a Holocaust joke in real life, like if that had happened in real life, that would get an even bigger response than the response in the show. It would also probably kill the deal all on its own. It doesn't seem like an accurate portrayal of how people view anti-Semitism in modern times. Kendall does try to explain away Mattson's tweet by saying that Mattson is European, although, I mean, that kind of makes the Holocaust joke even worse. Kendall's response is surprisingly measured, though. And Greg says, I'm here cheering you on, Tom, and seems really supportive of Tom, and then immediately abandons the stage to go with Kendall. Greg is so power hungry. I saw this joke a few times online, but Tom does go full Oprah with this speech with, you're an ATN citizen, and you're an ATN citizen. And Roman leaves the celebration early. It seems to imply that Roman knows that he's lost some cachet and should have done the speech with Kendall. He also might be mad that he does kind of try to freak out Kendall right before the speech, and it doesn't seem to work. And then at the end, it's unclear if Roman is listening to a fake recording of Logan or if Logan ever really said that. Of course, I don't think Logan would say that near a microphone, but it is possible. I didn't know where he got the recording. I saw something online about Kendall sending it to him. I don't know, but it is super fucked up that he listens to that on repeat, although it's very within character. And the ending of the episode with Kendall floating in the ocean, it reminded me of a Mad Men episode, I think from season 2 or 3, where Don Draper goes to California. It also made me super nervous for Kendall the first time I saw it, because I'm so used to worrying about him and his addictions and stuff and all that. I was worried that they would have some weird drowning thing again. This is just some kind of general notes here at the end. It's become obvious that the siblings will not get a happy ending. The only happy ending that the three of them really want is the love and respect of their dad, which is impossible for them to get now. I did kind of question if the stuff about the homeless guy getting Kendall's initials tattooed on his forehead, if that would come back. It could be ammo for Roman to blackmail Kendall into being sole CEO, but they haven't brought it back up in a while. And this show adds and drops subplots all the time, especially in earlier seasons. They would just add and drop subplots. So there's absolutely no Connor this episode. It looks like we're going to see him next episode, though, but I'm a major Con head. I wish we had seen more of him this episode, although I don't know where he would have fit in. I did note that we haven't seen Minkin yet this season. So now I'm going to go into predictions. When will Shiv predict that she is pregnant to anyone, including Tom? It's unclear. It does seem like their relationship, her and Tom's relationship, is trending towards them staying together. But that could change all over again by the end of the show. I do think that maybe it does seem like a legitimate thing where they seem to be getting back together. I did kind of question where the Shiv and Madsson subplot is going. Shiv seems to have encouraged him more in past episodes than she does in this one. She's a lot more standoffish with him in this one. I thought there might be something between them. They might have something developing between the two of them, but that doesn't seem like where it's going anymore. It kind of seems like there's not really anything there for Shiv, that it's all in Madsen's head. So the episode's emphasis on them fudging the numbers like that, it seems like that could come back to bite them, especially Roman and Kendall, especially Kendall. There's even more blackmail potential with that. There does seem to be a lot of blackmail potential in the show that isn't being used. I did question if they will ever even mention Living Plus again. I kind of doubt that they will. The show moves on from stuff really quickly. I kind of don't think the Gojo deal is going to go through. I mean, they were already kind of questioning Madsson and Madsson's stability, and then he makes a Holocaust joke. It does seem like they were really dragging their heels. I think the Kendall and Roman scheme might actually work. Where I think they might actually be able to price Madsson out of the deal, get to keep the company, or maybe force Madsson to buy Waystar Roko but not ATN. I did kind of wonder if Shiv will start making some more direct and overt power moves. I could honestly see her making some big moves to try to get a more official position by the end of the season, or maybe helping Tom blackmail other people. I don't think Roman and Kendall will continue their downward spiral. They both seem to be trending up by the end of the episode, especially Kendall. This might be a low point. This episode might be a low point from them, which they never kind of fall back into. I think Tom will respond well if/when Shiv gives him the news about the baby. I think it will kind of strengthen their bond and help them get back together. I could see that Shiv's pregnancy might be used against her in terms of business power stuff, where if she was CEO or something like that, she would have to take time off and might be distracted by a child. That's just kind of the glass ceiling and misogyny type stuff in the workplace. It doesn't seem like they're trending towards having Kendall relapse, but I do think it's possible. I did kind of question if we were ever going to see Kendall's kids and his baby mama again. I feel like I've seen pictures of them from this season, but I don't know if that's actually true or not. It's hard to tell on the internet. It does seem kind of weird that their grandpa died, his kids, and we haven't seen them. I did kind of question if Greg will actually gain any real power this season. He seems to be kind of trying to hitch his horse to Kendall's carriage or something. He seems to be trying to get on Kendall's good side. And next episode, it looks like there's some type of business party that Madsson crashes with his entourage. It also looks like Nate the journalist is going to be there. It also looks like Ebba, the woman that Madsson sends his blood to, will be at the party as well. And some of the other bros from Madsson's company are there. We'll see how that turns out. It could be an interesting episode. As I've said before, I don't think the co-CEO thing with Roman and Kendall will actually last. There's just no way that has staying power. Personally, I'm having trouble coming up with a landing spot for Shiv. I don't think she will end up as CEO, like I've said, but I suppose it's possible. I could also see that Shiv, using all this blackmail, will help Tom become CEO and then kind of just manipulate Tom into doing what she wants and stuff like that. There's a non-zero chance that Shiv and Tom could become co-CEOs as well, but that seems a little out there and far-fetched. Alrighty, I appreciate you watching / listening. Like and subscribe if you could, and I'll be back next week with more Succession coverage. Thanks.